afternoon, everyone, and greetings from Team MeduChamp. We are an organization of eminent faculties all over India, and our aim is to guide you through this recent process of change which have been brought upon us by the NMC. As you know that now NMC has mandated next examinations. Now, what are these next examinations? For you to simply understand, previously you used to give exam every year or every 1.5 year, and those were basically subjective type of questions. Well, that's not redundated. You will still be giving those exams. But along with that, if you want a registration, if you want to become an MBBS doctor, even after passing all those 4 years, you have to give another exam which is objective based. And if you do not score enough marks in that, you won't be considered a registered medical practitioner. So in order to get the degree, not only have you got to pass those subjective questions examination which your seniors had been giving, but you also have to pass this objective exam which will most probably happen in your final year. So that is next, and as you know that any change is a little bit chaotic, a little bit difficult, and we in Team MeduChamp are looking forward to guiding you through these changes. You can register with us on the following link, and don't worry, the link is also written here, and you can the course fee, we have some offers about the course fee. So the course fee right now is about 7,500 for early bird registrations. So please, we look forward to you in that. That being said, I'm Dr. Irfan. I'm Associate Professor in Department of Community Medicine, and I will be teaching you certain important aspects of this important chapter called screening. Now, we will be dealing this chapter in 3 parts. Those are, first part, I will be talking about concepts of screening. Most of the long questions which will come in your undergraduate examination. So you will be giving it in third professional part 1, right? So, or phase 3 as they say. So most of the long question will come from this first part. Some amount will come in the second part also. So these 2 parts are for your long questions. The second part is which screening test should we choose. So basically it deals with the properties of a screening test, like sensitivity, specificity, positive predictive value, and those things. So these are the topics which usually come as long question. And the last part, this I have shown it as miscellaneous, but I will be completing it in one part only. This part, what about combining 2 screening tests and some other things, these usually come as short questions. So the second part and third part, some part of the second part and most of the third part, they come as short questions or MCQ questions which will be useful for you during the next examination. So without let's look into the various types of long questions which are expected from this chapter. Since I am from Andhra Pradesh, so I am showing you all the questions which came in the previous university examinations. And as you can see, friends, last 5 years, one question is almost as if one question is bound to come from screening test. So let's as I said, this topic is very important for you. So let's start with this topic. The first part, which is concepts and application of screening test. So what is screening test? Where can you use screening? In which disease can you use screening test? In which disease you cannot? So that is what we call as criteria for screening tests. What are the types of screening tests? And what are the cutoff values of screening tests, and what are the limitations of screening tests. While we go through this chapter, we'll also come to learn about concepts like lead time, concepts like the yield of the test, concepts like the screening time, the latent period, and all those things. So let's start with this section of our chapter. You all will be familiar with this concept, right? Usually in the Viva, these are the favorite questions which an examiner asks, and that is what do you mean by iceberg phenomenon? And then the second question which comes is which disease was the iceberg phenomenon? Well, you all know that iceberg phenomenon is something which is exhibited by chronic diseases. So what the clinician sees on the top, right? These are the diseases which you are aware of, or which a clinician is aware of, or which the government is aware of, or which the society is aware of. That out of say 100 people, 20 people have the disease. But there is a huge submerged portion which we say is not visible to us, right? But it doesn't mean that people do not have disease. So these are undiagnosed or unrecognized cases. These are cases. These are not at-risk population, but these are cases. So maybe they are in a very early stage of the disease, because of which they are not recognized, or maybe they do not have the diagnostic facilities or the resources, so they are not recognized. But whatever is the reason, the submerged portion is called the unrecognized portion, or the unrecognized part of the disease. Now the problem in the community is it will give you a false hope that yeah, the disease doesn't exist in the community. You'll just see the top of the iceberg and you will say that, well, it's not a problematic disease in the community, but the bottom of the iceberg, well, it is a problem. So what can we do? Our clinical signs and symptoms, see, we can diagnose the disease when the patient comes to the doctor, right? And the patient usually comes to the doctor when after he has tried everything out, he has Google searched, he has no longer able to control his signs and symptoms, and only then the patient comes to the doctor. So is there any way, and even some of the tests, the diagnostic tests, they can only diagnose the disease in the later part of the life history of the disease. So are there any tests by which we can focus on this undiagnosed portion of the population? Well, that is what the function of a screening test is. Just a minute. That is what the function of a screening test is. So the screening tests basically focuses on this on detection of these undiagnosed cases, and the amount of these undetected cases, previously undetected cases, which a test is able to detect, that is called the yield of the disease. So simply you can say diagnostic test or diagnosed cases are only looking at the top of the disease. In order to find the undiagnosed cases, we use screening test, and the number of undiagnosed cases which you get to know after applying this screening test are called yield of the disease. Okay, now that we understood the concept of yield and where the screening tests are to be applied, let's go into the proper definition of screening. Now, three components are important in this definition of screening, and that is, as you did understand, that screening aims to identify unrecognized cases. That's the first concept. Second thing, it doesn't test on diseased population or apparently unhealthy population who come to hospitals. Rather, it tests on apparently healthy population. And the third thing is that in order to test anything on a healthy population, the test should be easily applied or rapidly applied. It should be easy. It should be non-invasive. See, the point is, if you have a disease, you can control certain invasive tests, right? If you have signs and symptoms, you can control certain invasive tests. But if you are apparently healthy, and if someone comes and he will say that he will poke you out here and there, you will definitely say no. So one of the criteria or one of the requirements of a screening test is also that it should be rapidly applied test. Now let's understand what is the difference between a screening test and a diagnostic test. Pardon me here, let's write it here as diagnostic test. So what is the difference between a screening test and diagnostic test? In the definition, from the definition, it is very clear that screening is done on apparently healthy individuals. It is done on populations, not on individuals. So it is done on apparently healthy population. Okay, and it should be rapid and fast. It should be cheap, because healthy people, why will they pay for finding out if they have a disease or not? And also, since you apply on a large scale of population, even if the government is sponsoring it, it has to be cheap. Okay, so that's the other criteria, or that's the other difference between screening and diagnostic test. Screening tests are not accurate, and we'll discuss about this property further in limitations of screening tests. There are bound to be certain false positive and false negative results, and screening test results are final. So if you are positive in a screening test, it means you are positive and you will be further investigated by a diagnostic test. This is the sequence which we follow. Healthy individuals will undergo screening test. Here, if it is positive in the screening test and this is results in final, these people will go for diagnostic test. So if you are positive in screening test, then you will have to go for a diagnostic test. And in the diagnostic test, if you are positive, so what will that mean? It means you have disease. But as you know that you will, if one diagnostic test says that it is positive, you will try to investigate it even further just to make sure that you have the disease. So the results in diagnostic test are not final. You can undergo a battery of tests. So not one test, two tests, three tests, four tests, five tests. You can undergo a battery of tests, and then only you will say that the person is having disease. So that's the difference. Screening test, the results are final. It will say whether you are presumptive to have disease or whether you are presumed not to have disease. The result is final. The diagnostic test, you need to test further for final diagnosis. So these are the various examples of screening tests and diagnostic tests. For example, diabetes, the screening test is random blood sugar and urine blood sugar. However, the diagnostic test is fasting blood sugar and 2-hour gastric tolerance test, glucose tolerance test. Just go through this list. Interesting point is hypertension, where both the screening test and the diagnostic test is the same, that is measure the BP by sphygmomanometer. So when to apply a screening test and on which disease to apply a screening test. So let's start with when to apply a screening test. We all are familiar with the concept of natural history of disease, right? In natural history of disease, there are two phases: pre-pathogenesis phase and pathogenesis phase. And in the pathogenesis phase, which is highlighted here, the disease will come and signs and symptoms will start appearing sometimes, and based on those signs and symptoms, the patient at the end or in the late stage of the disease is forced to reach out to the doctor for elevation of those signs and symptoms, and that is the usual point of diagnosis here. And this period between the onset of the disease and when the patient comes to the doctor to seek the diagnosis, or when the diagnosis is usually done in a disease, is called latent period. Latent means silent. So we don't know much about latency. It is slow. It's slow to wake up, or so that is latent period. Now, however, the diagnosis is not possible at this point. Diagnosis is possible even in the earlier course of the pathogenesis period. So let's say that it is this point where the diagnosis is possible. Okay. So this period is now called the lead time. The lead time is the time which you can save, okay, by early diagnosis in the course of the disease. So this is called lead time, and lead time is very essential. This is the concept of lead time, and screening test usually provides you this lead time. And lead time is very essential. Why? Because you are able to diagnose a disease in the earlier course of its pathogenesis period. And as you know that in the earlier course, complications will be less, and so treatment is easier, treatment is shorter, and most probably treatment will also lead to complete remission. Now, what is screening time? Let's see this point. This is the critical point of diagnosis. What do you mean by critical point of diagnosis? Because diagnosis after this point, well, it will have certain implications, or it will not have certain benefits. So if you're diagnosing before this point, well, the cost to the healthcare is less. So maybe a simple treatment will be able, that same disease, if you're diagnosing it during this point, maybe a simple treatment will suffice to cure the disease. But if you're diagnosing anyway beyond this, then the cost rises, or maybe the consequences rises. So this is the critical point of diagnosis. You have to diagnose before this point. If you're diagnosing before this point, then it means there will be some guaranteed or some extra benefit to the patient. Now this point is called screening time. Okay, so screening time helps in diagnosing the disease earlier, beyond or before the critical point of diagnosis. So thus the concept of screening time, lead time, and latent period. Sometimes we have this concept called lead time bias. What do you mean by lead time bias? Well, let's say we have a disease like cancer. Usual point of diagnosis is here, and the patient survives, say, 5 years after that. Okay, so you will say that cancer mortality at the end of it, or after diagnosis, the patient survives for 5 years. That's okay. Now, suppose we have this wonderful screening test, because of which we are able to diagnose the disease at this point in time, which is, say, 3 years before the usual point of diagnosis. Now, when I say after the diagnosis, how long is the patient going to survive? Well, since adequate treatment is not available, he will survive for 5 plus 3, which is 8 years. So basically what's happening here is the life expectancy of patient is not increasing. He is still dying at the time which he is supposed to die. But this test or screening test is giving you a sense that the patient is surviving 3 years longer. Okay, so this is called lead time bias. So this is another criteria of screening test, that you apply screening test on only those disease where earlier diagnosis will have at least some benefit to the patient. In this example, earlier diagnosis had no benefit to the patient. The patient anyway was dying after 5 years. Okay, so it was having no benefit. So those are one of the criteria of screening test. We will discuss more about it in further sections. So let's come to some question and answer, MCQ type of question and answer. There are several points in the course of the disease. These are disease onset, first point of detection, final critical point, usual time of diagnosis, and final outcome. The same thing which we had shown in the previous slide. So yeah, disease onset, first critical point of point of possible detection, critical point of diagnosis, usual time of diagnosis, and then maybe here let's say final outcome. And these points they have written as A, B, and C. Okay, let's write that thing down. Okay, A, B, C, D, and E. So for a screening test to be effective, it should be applied between what? So for the screening test to be effective, it should be applied in the screening time. If it is applied here beyond the critical point of diagnosis, well, it has no benefit for us. It will lead to lead time bias, but it will have no benefit for us. So it should be applied before the critical point of diagnosis, that is a screening time. So the answer is B and C, which is the answer is C. Now let's come to another question. Period between possible time of detection and the actual time of diagnosis is. So the possible point of detection is this point, and the actual time of diagnosis is this point, and this interval is called lead time, right? So the answer is lead time. Yeah. So since it is such a wonderful concept, so should all diseases have a screening test? Well, the answer is no, and I already gave you an example why some diseases screening, or which diseases should have screening test. So let's get into detail about it. So these are the criteria of a disease, or these are the criteria of a screening test, where a screening test should be applied. For a screening test to be applied, the disease should have the following points. It should be a disease of public health importance, okay, because it is applied on the healthy population. So if it is a very rare disease, why do you want to apply a test on the entire population, on the apparently healthy population? It's of no use, right? So it should be of public health importance. It should be a disease whose natural history is known, so that you need to know which intervention you need to give, and it should have a long latent phase. It should have a long latent phase. Remember the latency period, so it should have a long latent phase. The screening test should be applied to, or the screening test which should be applied should be cheap, acceptable, easy to administer, cost effective, suitable and safe. We already discussed about this thing. Otherwise the healthy population will never accept it if any of these criteria are missing. And the screening test should be valid and reliable. What is validity and what is reliability? Validity means it is measuring what it is supposed to measure. Okay, so if it is measuring blood sugar, it is measuring blood sugar. It is not measuring something else. Okay, that is valid test. Reliable test means consistency. That means consistently it is giving you the same result. So one day, so the same day one person measures the blood sugar, he gets say 100. Another person measures, he will also get somewhere around 100 or 101. So that is a reliability. So a screening test should be valid and reliable. It should not change depending upon observers and depending on all those things. And after screening, there should always be an effective diagnostic test. So if the screening test is positive, you need to have an effective diagnostic test. Availability of effective treatment regimen, which we just discussed right now about lead time bias. So only apply it only on those diseases which have an effective treatment regimen. If there is no effective treatment regimen, there is no point of using a screening test. And the intervention, this treatment regimen should be able to decrease the suffering. So for example, rabies. Now, even if you have a screening test for rabies, it is no point, because rabies is 100% fatal. Right. So these are the criteria of a screening test. Remember the long question, they will ask it also as a short question. What are the criteria for a screening test? The disease should have certain criteria. After the screening, what will happen? That should have certain criteria. And the screening test which should be applied, that should also have certain criteria. Types of screening test, again, you can divide it into 3 types. Who should be screened? We know that healthy population are screened, but what type of healthy population? So based on that, you can say mass screening. Mass screening means everyone is screened. Every person is screened. Okay. High risk screening, that means only people at high risk of developing the disease are screened. For example, obese people are screened for diabetes and hypertension. And opportunistic screening. Opportunistic screening means you do not go out in the healthy population to screen everyone. But when the population comes to you, then opportunistically you screen. For example, in our health program for non-communicable disease, we take opportunistic screening for hypertension and diabetes. So we know that anyone above 30 years of age is a risk factor for diabetes. So anyone, if he comes to the sub-center with any complaints, say fever, say malaria, there you also screen for diabetes and hypertension for that person. So this is called opportunistic screening. That means the person has come to you for some other disease, but irrespective of that, you also screen for other disease. That means he came to you for fever and you screen him for diabetes and hypertension. That is called opportunistic screening. Why should they be screened? That is prospective screening and prospective screening. Prospective screening means it helps the patient who is being screened. Okay, so suppose a person has a risk factor to develop diabetes, and you are screening him for the presence or absence of diabetes. It is helping him. That is called prospective screening or prescriptive screening. No, I'm saying perspective, sorry, prescriptive screening. Okay. Second is prospective screening. What do you mean by prospective screening? Here, the screening is, of course, it helps the person, but it also helps the population around him. So suppose someone has certain risk factors for, say, HIV or sexually transmitted diseases, and you are screening that person. So not only it will help that person to confirm whether he has a disease and to take the treatment, but it will also help us from spreading the disease further to the healthy population. That is called prospective screening. So antenatal mother coming to your hospital and you are screening her for, say, HIV. So that will help the baby inside her womb from getting perinatal infection. So these are examples of prospective screening. Number of tests versus diseases, well, multiphasic screening, where you can apply more than one screening test to one disease. Okay, so one disease you apply test A followed by test B, which is called testing in series, or you can apply test A and B together, which is called testing in parallel. So that is multiphasic screening. Or multi-purpose screening. What is multi-purpose screening? One screening test will able to screen for 2 or 3 diseases. So disease A, disease B and disease C. All these diseases are screened by one screening test. So that is another example. That is what we call multi-purpose screening. So many tests screening for one disease is multiphasic. One test screening for many diseases is multi-purpose screening. The limitations of screening test is, however, that a screening test is not accurate. As I said, screening test will have certain false positive and false negative results. So let's say these things. Let's have a 2x2 contingency table. So if the person has the disease and if a test comes positive in a screening test, these people are called true positives. If the person does not have the disease and in the screening test it comes as negative, then these people are called true negative, and these are what we require in a screening test, the true positives and the true negatives. Okay. However, as we said, screening test is not accurate. There will be certain false results. So a person not having a disease is tested as positive. That is called false positive. Okay. This is an error for us. Similarly, a person having a disease is not tested as positive or is tested as negative. These are called false negative. Okay. So these are certain errors which happen in a screening test. Now, which screening test should we use them? Which is more important, to decrease the false positive or to decrease the false negative? And if you know that there are 2 tests for a disease, which screening test will you use? So based on that, we say that there are certain characteristics of a screening test, which are sensitivity, specificity, percentage false positive, percentage false negative, based on which you determine which screening test you will use. There are also certain predictive values of a test, like positive predictive value and negative predictive value. Now, the point about positive and negative predictive value is that they change. They change according to the prevalence of the disease. But sensitivity and specificity, they do not change with the prevalence of the disease. We'll talk about this more in our third topic. But for now, let's remember that which test to be chosen, that depends on the characteristics of the test and the predictive values of the test. And we'll discuss about it in further second lecture of ours. One important criteria again is cutoff values. If it is an infectious disease, you can simply say whether he is positive or whether he is negative for the test. So that means whether he has the disease or whether he doesn't have it. But what about non-infected disease, like non-communicable disease? Here you need to have a cutoff value. Okay. So for example, in diabetes, The cutoff value is say for fasting blood sugar it is 125, and for postprandial it is 200, and that is a diagnostic test. How about screening test? Randomly we will check the blood sugar of a person. Randomly, not fasting, not 2 hours postprandial, but randomly we are going to test. Suppose we make the cutoff value at 180. Okay, so we found that 140 people, they were found negative or they did not have the disease, and 60 people were found to have the disease. Now consider this value. Now think that maybe a person has come without eating anything. Okay, there he should be above 126, means he must have had the disease. But here we are taking the cutoff value as 180. So that kind of a person who has come without eating, that type of person will get a negative result in this screening test, right? So this will be false negative. Similarly, if we change the cutoff value, for example, to say 140, what will happen? Again, it will lead to these type of problem. So it will lead to, say, here the number of positive cases will increase to 110, and the number of negative cases will increase to number 90. The point here which we are trying to say is that your cutoff value depends upon or the prevalence of the disease. If the disease is more prevalent, then you can choose one particular cutoff value, and if the disease is less prevalent, you can choose another type of cutoff value. But just remember this point, if it at all comes as a MCQ, it doesn't come as a long question, that if you choose a lower cutoff point, you will get more chances of false positive and less chances of false negative. However, if you choose a higher cutoff point, you will get less chances of false positive, but you will have more chances of false negative. So with that, we come to an end of our section 1. Cutoff point should be lower for a disease with high prevalence and high mortality. Okay, so with that we end our chapter 1. In chapter 2 or in lecture 2, we'll discuss further about sensitivity, specificity, and other characteristics of a screening test. So